Welcome to this week's edition of TFL's Capital Connection. I know that many of you watch this video every week, in particular because you're interested in the heartbeat bill, which has had so much attention over the course of this legislative session. And the heartbeat bill is facing something big right now called the budget, which is keeping several things at bay, but we're going to check in with Chuck Hurley here in just a minute on the heartbeat bill. We also have some other incredible and exciting news to share with you, and that's why I've got TFL's Vice President of Church Engagement, Greg Baker, here. He's going to tell us about that as well. But first, let us go ahead and talk about specifically the heartbeat bill as well as other issues that we're seeing happen up at the Capitol this week. Chuck?
Drew, it's appropriate that we spend so much time on the heartbeat bill. It is the most powerful life legislation in the United States. It does intend to challenge Roe versus Wade, and it is this close to passage. So, Drew, I just have some really good news for our viewers. In probably 2 or 3 dozen conversations this week with our key friends in the legislature, it looks like the heartbeat bill has a strong chance of passage. The caution is the wheels can come off at any time. There are powerful forces, both spiritual and legislative, that would like to derail this bill. So suffice it to say, every single day that the legislature is meeting, Danny, Carol, and I are up there finding out what's going on with the heartbeat bill, and we will let you know through our channels, email and otherwise, when you really need to call. We would ask you to pray periodically for this bill, because it's primarily a spiritual battle.
Good. A good point that he makes is that we have that presence at the Capitol every day, which means conversations are happening, which means those opportunities for influence, those opportunities for legislators to ask questions. You and Danny are up there every single day.
Just this week, one of our lead legislators, who's probably going to carry most of the water on this bill as session wraps up, had some very difficult questions to answer about the University of Iowa's OB/GYN residency program. And so thanks to one of our board members, who's a medical doctor, we were able to get that senator some answers within a few minutes, and he was very appreciative. So yes, we try to supply what's needed. We are also encouraging all our key friendly legislators to get enough rest to stay spiritually and physically fit, because the end of session usually goes to the last man or woman standing. There's a great deal of stamina involved in finishing strong. Last week I taught the Bible study at the Capitol on how to finish strong, and then in individual conversations we're exhorting them to be sure and take care of themselves, so that when those last few angry opposition pushes come against heartbeat, that they're able to withstand that.
Very good. We also have some very exciting news, and I'm thrilled to have Greg with us here today, on a milestone that was reached this week. You know, Chuck talked just a moment ago about being spiritually prepared, being spiritually rested and ready and encouraged up at the Capitol, and that's a big part of what you do and a big part of why this news is exciting. So, Greg, I'm not going to steal any more of your thunder. Tell us what's going on. Why are we celebrating this week?
Well, this week, Drew, as you guys know, we've reached 1,000 pastoral visits to the Iowa Capitol. We've been doing what we call the Iowa Capitol Project for the last 3 years. And what that is we're building intentional relationships between the shepherds of God's church and the shepherds of government. And in Iowa, our legislators in session January through May and January through April, depending on the year. And during this time, on a daily basis, we are bringing pastors to the Capitol with the purpose to build intentional relationships. Well, this past week, we've reached our 1,000th visit. That means 1,000 times pastors have come, visited, with the purpose of building relationships. And what we have seen in just such a short period of time is just incredible spiritual gains. It's far surpassed anything I could have imagined in this window.
Well, I know that Danny Carroll, who often joins us for the Capital Connection, he said just this past week that he envisioned, years ago, he envisioned a day when there would be just 2 pastors up at the Capitol every day that the legislature was in session. And if you do the math, 1,000 pastors over 3 years, we have far surpassed that average. And he was so encouraged and so grateful to the pastors who are doing that. Greg, can you tell us just, a little bit about what actually happens when the pastors are there? I know that Danny also said that we should be grateful for what the pastors are doing. Can you just give our viewers a little sense of what they're actually doing?
Yeah, and I think what's important to remember is a lot of times when you're looking at government, it's this far obscure thing. But in the day, our legislators are people. 150 different people with 150 different needs, whether that be professionally, personally, spiritually, you name it, 150 different needs. And what we have is our pastors will join us each week at 9 in the mornings when we start. We meet together for an hour, and we just try to give them a lay of the land. What's going on at the Capitol, and quite frankly, why are we here? Pastors don't come from constituent relationships. That's not the purpose of it. This isn't just bringing a constituent to their elected official. We would be there whether or not we voted for these individuals. It's shepherd to shepherd. But the goal is not to minister them politically, but it's to minister to their hearts. And what these pastors do, and each of them will take a different approach, and each representative and legislator takes a different approach, because they're people. But they're building intentional relationships with their lives through prayer, through counsel, even on personal issues. Sometimes the legislator trusts that. That also just on the many policy issues they discuss. Some pastors go as far to give counsel on, a wide array of issues: immigration, usury. We even had some issues with drug offenses this year that people talked into the death penalty. And of course, the life legislation, pastors have been speaking quite a bit into the life issue as a whole. But what's very important is all of these conversations are in confidence. Just like if you would walk into your pastor's office and you have a conversation with them, you trust your pastor keeps that private. We do the same thing. So a lot of the viewers haven't heard as much what goes on in that daily presence at the Capitol as pastors, largely because we are respecting that confidentiality. But it is happening daily. Personal conversations are happening daily. And we're going to do everything we can to protect that ministry and allow God's Spirit to move in all of our legislators, regardless of any form of political persuasion.
I'm excited to have both Greg and Chuck here with us today because they represent in the 2 different arenas, Chuck working with lobbying and you working with, Greg working with pastors and their hearts and ministering. We're talking about a visual representation of how the family leader works at so much more than just policy, but that truly we focus on cultural transformation. And that means changing hearts, changing lives, as well as changing minds and changing votes. It's all one big part of the same picture. And there's a part that you can play as well. And I want to encourage you, speaking of the heart and the cultural transformation, revival starts at home. I'd encourage you to visit if714.com. We are united together with tens of thousands of believers around the world in prayer twice daily for revival. Revival in our hearts, revival in our legislators' hearts, revival in our churches, revival in our cultures, revival in our world. Visit if714.com today and see how you can download a free app to your phone that you can join in that heart for revival. And then if you see, for example, we talked about heartbeat today. If you've got a heart for life and you want to see that legislation passed, visit thefamilyleader.com today. You'll see right at the top a big red siren that will alert you to what you can do to contact your legislator, your governor, prayer that you can be a part of, ways that you can contact your local newspapers. There's lots of ways for you to get involved. Visit thefamilyleader.com. Visit if714.com. And we'll see you next week, hopefully with more good news.